Welcome, my friends. Welcome to another edition of More Bad News, brought to you as always by Camel Cigarettes. Take the Camels Challenge, smoke Camels for 30 days, and see for yourself what a difference Camels can make in your life. Well, my friends, it's been another week of very bad news. Uh, some of it a bit personal. I got a sleep apnea machine 3 days ago, which was supposed to help me sleep and get more oxygen. And I haven't slept in 3 nights, so it takes getting used to. But I wanted to start this week off with a shout out to Glenn, who sent me his new book. It is incredible. I just want to read a snip here and then say something about it. Today's isolation is made worse. This is from the book on page 26 and 27. I'm going to read a little bit of it. Today's isolation is made worse from new sources of anxiety. Today's students are being set up by political activists to secretly videotape teachers in the classroom to expose their lies, corruption, and abuse. Today, we're made anxious by the prospect of addressing something controversial that comes up in the classroom. God forbid that you say the word gay or imply that slavery was not a picnic. Fear is contagious. It causes an epidemic of self-censorship, and it may well contaminate my classroom, because right next door in Westwood, New Jersey, their Board of Education considered a policy that required controversial topics to first be approved by the superintendent before they could be discussed in the classroom. I spoke to a colleague from Westwood, and she described the contentious atmosphere there. Had fascism come to my doorstep? I can't say anything wrong. I can't. Don't ask questions. Keep your head down. Say nothing. So I pondered. A superintendent approving a discussion of controversial issues. Controversial according to who? To what end? Isn't public school supposed to help students deal with civic-minded and globally aware? So shouldn't students and teachers together decide what they think is interesting, not the superintendent? And finally, how does censoring conversations in the classroom help students get a job or become better citizens? Just news of self-censorship crushes the will to teach. Today's chaotic new normal would make Horace Mann whimper. We are overworked and reviled. We are expected to promote tolerance while limiting wide-ranging conversations in our classroom. We are expected to grow as professionals, yet are compelled to keep our anxieties secret. We are supposed to work overtime with scarce time in school to lesson plan, grade, and collaborate with colleagues. We see that teaching is a market failure. Money alone doesn't improve performance, yet epiphanies in the classroom do not percolate from a culture riddled with anxiety and poverty. We fear that distrust is spreading between teachers and students and parents and the larger community. We struggle to prepare our students for a world that is changing too fast to be comprehended. And finally, we realize that our students have it worse than we do. So, worthwhile reading. My friends, I was lucky. I was really lucky. I was born in 1947, just after World War II, a Jew second generation, ready to take advantage of all the opportunities that America afforded children like me. I was a virgin until April 15th, 1967. But I made up for lost time quickly in an age where birth control was easily available and before AIDS. There was no reason not to explore our sexuality, and that is just what my generation did. We had lots of sex, tons of intimacy, the drugs were plentiful, and there were plenty of willing partners for play. I went to an all-boys yeshiva for high school, a monastery of sorts, where the boys lived together, ate together, and studied together. Older boys would adopt a younger boy to mentor. We all wore black pants and white shirts, and there was no violence. We loved each other. And there was nothing off the table in the class. The first Gemara that I ever studied was on the tractate of marriages and had to deal with whether you could have sex with a virgin on Friday night for the first time, because there would be blood and tearing, and was it legal or not legal? And it was okay. The bottom line is, yes, you can have sex with a virgin on Friday night. It is perfectly good. So uh, nothing was off the table for debate. The whole Talmud was all about debates. Nobody ever agreed with anybody on anything. You have to behave well, which meant that you had to get up for prayers in the morning and you had to study every day, all day, every day. And most of the time with a study partner, particular study partner. These partnerships were often lasted a lifetime, and the Talmud is filled with rabbinic partnerships like that of Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan was described very feminine and beautiful with long hair, and he was bathing in the river. And Resh Lakish, a gladiator turned gang leader criminal, was so taken by seeing him in the water that he jumped into the river and swam across, and the two never parted until Resh Lakish died. That was a chavrusa. They became a partnership for life. The boys in my school were very affectionate. Kissing and hugging were common. We all danced together, sometimes for hours on Shabbos, arms in arm together. There was nothing unseemly with that behavior. We loved each other, and we were encouraged by our teachers to love each other. Sometimes a problem arose, and the boys were gently separated. My Rebbe was everything to me in high school. If I wanted to go to a movie, I needed to ask permission. Different boys had different rebbeim. There were lots of teachers, and any one of them could be your Rebbe. Some were more lenient than others, but you couldn't go to a movie. You had to stick with your Rebbe, where, he said, and everyone in that school became successful after high school, except for David Rabinowitz, who died of childhood leukemia. Everybody else went on to great careers. My friends, I come to you from another planet, from a world long lost, where children could flourish and come to sexual maturity, eager to explore what nature blessed them with. And to continue on the personal note, last week I became aware of two deaths. Rabbi Michael Lerner, who was very influential in my generation. He was the founder of Tikkun magazine, a very left-leaning magazine that only recently stopped. It was online for a while, and he was very critical of Israel, and he, in his obit, his son Akiva mentions that his dad took advantage of California's assisted suicide law to take his own life. He was suffering from congestive heart failure. I mean, he knew he was dying. This was fairly imminent, but he wanted to be able to do it himself and do it with the least pain possible. God, how I envy that. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to live in a state where when you have congestive heart failure and you don't have very much time left, you can decide, no, I don't need any more of this. I've got congestive heart failure, okay? I'm not going to live for very much longer. Give me the pills. And then Yitzhak Epstein died last week. You don't know him, and you don't know anything. I'm just going to read a little bit. That he was my friend Aviva Cantor, who is 84, and she's one of my oldest friends, and they were very close. So she said, you have to understand that when you're my age, you have lots of very old friends, and they're dropping like flies. This is not Aviva's, this is me. People you loved and were very important in your life. One by one, you're losing them. The angel of death is coming for your entire generation. And then you start hearing the Grateful Dead singing in the background. touch of gray, and you realize you're still existent, and um, and you're so damn grateful for having a great run at life. Just enough suffering to develop compassion, but not too much to crush the spirit. So Yitzchak was connected with my friend Aviva in 1968 when he was in SDS, and he became the central organizer of the Jewish Liberation Project. Aviva writes, he was my mentor. I remember how when we were defining Zionism, I said it meant believing that Israel was essential to Jews. And he said that the definition had to begin with an understanding of the nature of Galut, of the living in exile. And he was right. Yitzchak's many-faceted work in the Jewish Liberation Project, which included many articles, memorable, brilliant open letter to Eldridge Cleaver, his central role in the emerging Jewish movement takeover of the Federation Building in 1970. I was there, we got arrested. It was wonderful. His vital activities in the Jewish Liberation Project came to the notice of which selected him to organize the network, which was a national organization networking student movements, and led to the establishment of the Jewish Student Press Service. It was because of Yitzchak that my time at JLP, this is Aviva writing, were the best years of my life. More importantly, his important work for JLP and Network had a central impact on the positive changes that took place within the Jewish community after 1967. So you probably never heard of him or of any of the organizations that he is involved in. He's gone, SDS is gone, the Jewish Liberation Project is gone. We had a dream, and it turned into a nightmare. Nothing went as we expected. For all of our optimism and arrogance, our destiny was death, not resurrection. It was not the age of Aquarius, after all. If we are evolving towards anything, I wrote in 2010, it is towards death, our individual death, the death of our civilization, the death of our species. And as we evolve towards death, we see the evolution of evil from primitive forms of brutality to advanced systems of evil, like the ones in Xinjiang internment camps in China. Well, my friends, that brings us to an end of another week of very bad news, most of which I never discussed. Oh, but right, before I go, I did want to mention two little items from Science Magazine. So the first is called Where Have All the Calamari Gone? And you're right, they have to have the musical background. Science Magazine reports that the fishery that supplied half the calamari eaten in Europe has shut down for the first time ever. The squid haul, worth $350 million, usually exceeds 100,000 tons, but a survey in July reported that only 10,000 of the animals remained, prompting the government to cancel the season. In August 2023, all the vessels were fishing in one little area, which was a sign that the population was probably depleted. So, and then there was this article. Bats are dying from WNS, white nose syndrome, which is caused by a fungal pathogen that emerged in New York in 2006. Spreading rapidly across the United States, it caused a 90% decline in the bat population. Comparing counties with and without WNS, before and after it emerged, Frank illustrates, and by the way, I saw this myself. I used to go out in the morning and there would be swarms, clouds of bats coming across out of the woods, and and hunting, going out to eat their breakfast. And then the bats disappeared. And I asked myself, where did the bats go? And then I asked myself, where did the insects go? And I realized, oh my God. So comparing counties with and without WNS before and after it emerged, Frank, the scientist, illustrates that farmers increased their use of insecticides by 31% in order to balance. And infant mortality increased by 8% in counties that experienced bat declines. This research adds to the growing body of causal influence inference literature, suggesting that environmental pollution in general, and pesticides in particular, result in adverse birth outcomes. Frank illustrates further that technologies are often poor substitutes for regulating services provided by an intact, functioning ecosystem. For example, using insecticides instead of, bats. Now, an estimated 3 billion individual birds, or almost 1/3 of the 1970 population of birds in the United States, are estimated to have already been lost. Although it is near impossible to fully quantify the ecosystem and welfare losses of such a widespread declines, stemming the biodiversity crisis is crucial to maintaining the benefits that ecosystems provide. That's, their take-home message. It's crucial that we stem the tide of this enormous mass extinction event if we want to survive. It's kind of leads you nowhere. That was also all of this from Science Magazine, The Long Shadow of Biodiversity Loss. Well, that's going to have to do it for this week. Be well, stay safe. Remember, the goal is to experience the joy of existence. It's not easy, I know. It will really help if you take the Camel's Challenge. There's nothing so life-affirming as taking the Camel's Challenge today. Inshallah, or as we say, in Yirtzeh Hashem, God willing, I'll be back next Sunday with more bad news.